All right, looks like we are just about all wrapped up with that. I appreciate everyone taking the time to complete that. If you're not quite finished, take your time, wrap it up when you have a moment, and it'll be fine. The main thing is just that it gets completed. I think the close. I think it's still open for most of another week. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it's open through maybe the 11th or something like that. So if you didn't quite get it finished now, or you're still finishing up, you do still have a little bit of time. But like I said, I just want to make sure that I've got enough responses so that I actually get some feedback. And the other thing I always like to throw out around these course evaluations is that I am a firm believer in the growth mindset for myself. So if there's any feedback about the course that you have that you feel comfortable sharing directly with me, I certainly welcome that. You don't have to do it right now. You can, if you're have some concerns or something, you could always wait until after grades are turned in or whatever. But I do definitely welcome suggestions, and I'm always looking for ways to improve this course year over year for the next group of students. So I do welcome that. I will see the feedback hopefully from these, but if you have things that you would like to share directly with me, I would appreciate that. So, in terms of sort of wrapping up the course, what I like to do is kind of look to finish this course up by looking backwards a bit and kind of remind us of why we took this journey over the last 15 weeks, why the work that we've done is relevant to the program of study that you've now engaged in as students in the educational technology program. So one way to do that is to look back at the course objectives straight off of the course syllabus from the very beginning of the course. There were half a dozen sort of goals for the course or objectives for the course, and all the work that we've done since then has all been structured to help reach those goals. So let me actually do this in case people don't have it up on their screens. I'll share this out over um, through this. And I know that's probably a little small. I'll try to zoom in here a little bit, although I might lose some text off the screen. But basically, step one was just sort of understanding what instructional design looks like. So we looked at a bunch of different models, a bunch of different ways, from ADDIE to backwards design, to some other maybe less known models of instruction. And the goal there was not to kind of say, this is the model that everybody should use all the time, but rather to just get an idea of what instructional design, what having an instructional design model can provide you. And in terms of the relevance to the rest of this program, pretty much all of the other classes you will be taking as part of this program, this instructional design concept will lie at the core of every single one of them. So, for example, one of the classes I teach next semester is about gaming and gamification. It's one of the technology tools that we can employ in a classroom to engage students. But creating a game experience or a gamified experience for a classroom requires you to have a reason for that game to exist. What are the goals that you're trying to achieve? Who is the audience that you're building that game for? What is the situation it's going to be taught in? So all of the same things that we've seen in all of these instructional design models, we're not going to be writing a 10-page paper every time we go to create a handout, but the process needs to be there for that material, for that educational technology moment to be useful and effective in the class. So we wanted to set the stage, give an understanding of those, And then basically from there, build your own instructional design, get a firsthand experience of walking through all the steps of what it looks like to say, here's what I want my students to do. Now, how do I plan to actually get those students to that point so that it's not just a shot in the dark? So we started by doing kind of the analysis piece of an instructional design model, really coming to understand who the design is for, what the situation is, and out of all of that, getting goals, coming up with clear, measurable, specific, time bound, all of those things relevant goals. And we use the SMART model in this case. Great model to use, not the only model out there, but certainly a model that has kind of risen to the top in terms of being effective. Um, Having a goal is great, but you have to know how to lead your students to that goal. And it's never just jump to the goal. There's always a procedure that needs to happen to get people there. So then we took a little bit of a deeper dive into breaking down a goal into instructional steps. And we did that through this sort of two-phase thing of, first of all, the information processing analysis, saying, here is the thing we want the students to do. Let's go and take a look at how somebody who knows how to do this thing does it, break down their process into steps so that we can then kind of lead our students through those same steps, like they're walking a pathway through a garden. And then for each of those steps, once we know what a step is, what activity has to happen in a step, examining that for what type of learning does that step represent? Is it just sort of rote memorization? Is it a procedure? Is it a concept? Is it a kinesthetic a movement, psychomotor skill? And once you know that for each of the steps, then that can give you a lot of help and information on developing a procedure to get students to be able to do that piece of the pathway. So this applies to instructional technology because this is where a lot of that instructional technology comes into play. If you understand exactly what you're trying to get students to do, and you're looking at a procedure for getting them to do that thing, technology can then be a great tool for helping the students get to that point. So again, for future classes in this program, whether it's a video design class or a graphic design class or other things, understanding the process will help you develop better materials to support that. So then we took a closer look at materials. The three sort of measurements of appropriate, engaging, and accessible, making sure that whatever you create or whatever you decide to use to support instruction meets all three of those criteria, um, so that we know that they're going to be effective and are going to support the students. And then once we have all of that going, we need to have that assessment piece in place as well, before, during, and after instruction. And again, this is a place where technology is playing an increasingly larger role. But hopefully, as we got a chance to look at a bit in this course, using technology in assessment situations has its particular little challenges as well. And a lot of time that just means getting a little bit more creative about how you're testing the students. What are the activities you're asking them to do um, in order to show what they've done, and so on. So that kind of forms the end of the road for this instructional process. The last little piece that we kind of threw in over the past week is that whole concept of technology integration plans. And that kind of is going to flow all over the place. Anytime you are making a proposal or planning to bring a new technology or bring technology into the educational process, please do yourself a favor and have a plan in place for how that technology is going to be used, how to select the correct technology if you've got options between different things, and so on. So that's, again, this was what we said from the beginning of the course in terms of the objectives. And hopefully, over the course of the 15 weeks and the 4 phases that we completed, the 2 mini projects that you worked on, the various discussion forums and readings and so on that we've had, hopefully you are coming out of this course feeling like you've got a pretty decent handle on what an instructional design process looks like. Again, you're not going to go through this in this level of detail for every little piece of educational technology you want to use, but you can sort of simplify this process down to its key parts and at least do a quick little sort of analysis of a situation. So if you are going to create a handout, you are going to create a video, you are looking for a website that you can use as a resource, that you kind of cooking in the background have this instructional design process there to just kind of check you and make sure that you're making the best decisions and finding the most effective use and applications for that technology as you go. So, again, I know a number of you are already engaged or have already taken other courses in the program, but generally speaking, this course is kind of the setting the stage gateway for the majority of the rest of the program. So hopefully this will all be information that you will be able to apply and use in the other courses as you work your way through this. So that's just kind of my little recap of what we've done over the past 15 weeks and why it applies to what we're doing and how this information and how these skills and knowledge can hopefully be used as you go forward. Um, Obviously, the main thing that we did through all of this was our instructional design projects, um, which we've completed in over the course of several phases over the past 15 weeks. Hopefully, everybody is able to or is already in the process of kind of assembling that final instructional design document, which again should pretty much just flow right out of the 4 phases that you completed, and basically an assembly process and just kind of tidying it up and tightening it up so it's one document. But what I like to do on this final night, because the majority of the work in this course has been individual, I know at times through our discussion forums you've had a chance to have little glimpses into what everyone else is working on. Is I just like to do kind of a quick around the room, and have each of you briefly. This isn't even a full presentation of any kind, but just briefly maybe say 3 things about the project that you did. Say what the main topic was or what the subject was that you decided to use. And if you want to say anything briefly also about who it's for, or what situation, what I don't know, classroom you're teaching in, or what situation you're planning on designing it for. Um, then to also talk a little bit about if there were any challenges you ran into in particular as you worked your way through the process. Um, a number of you, through your reflections on each of the phases, have brought up a number of things along the way, and what I really like seeing is in most of those cases, you would bring up something that was a challenge, but then you describe sort of how you addressed that and how having the process in place helped you kind of work through that particular phase of things. So if there's, 1 or 2 quick things along those lines that maybe you'd like to share, sort of to help other people if they had similar situations. And, maybe if there's just sort of what was your main takeaway out of the process, or, anything along those lines. So again, brief, just a couple of minutes each. I don't want to keep us here all night. I guess this is a place where having a number of people not here tonight is actually going to work in our favor. It won't take quite as long to get through everyone. Um, so yeah, so just like I said, just quickly around the room. I'll just take it on a volunteer basis. So if anybody wants to just jump in and go first, just raise your hand or unmute yourself or whatever, and then you can go ahead and we'll just kind of go around and give everybody a chance to just say a couple minutes about their plans. So is there anyone who wants to be the brave one and go first? Yeah, Carrie, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone again. So my instructional design plan was around solving systems of equations in algebra. Um, I've noticed over the past couple of years that a weird thing students struggle with is just identifying the number of solutions for a system of equations using a graph, even though it's very cut and dry how to answer that question. So I decided to go with that, and the process is always very interesting to always take a deep dive into something like this. I really enjoyed like thinking out through all the steps for the project to kind of get it down on paper. I didn't really find anything like really challenging. It's a topic I've taught over the last several years, but just to kind of go at it from this lens was very interesting.
All right. Oop. All right. Thank you, Carrie. That was great. Nice and brief, to the point. Exactly what we want. All right. Who's going to go next now that we've broken the ice? Yeah, Rachel, go ahead. I see
I'll go
that. I
next.
see that hand up there.
Hi everyone. My topic was social studies, so it might not make too much sense, but I focused mine around a historical thinking skill. It's called sourcing. And really, with sourcing, you're trying to identify the author, the author's perspective, the author's reliability. And essentially, the main goal for my students was to look at a source and look at the author and the date it was created and consider its reliability. Is there bias? Should they be using this source? And would it be helpful for helping historians or themselves even understand what truly happened at like an event in 1600s, but it was created in the 1900s? So they needed to decide, is that truly a helpful source? And I realize that students really struggle with primary and secondary sources and just in general finding reliable sources. They think Wikipedia is their end all. So I actually use SMART goals in my school district, and I told my what is it, my counterpart, the other social studies teacher, about this class and what I was doing, and we decided to do it for our student learning objective as well. So we've been doing this, and I mean, we've had some struggles. The students are struggling to understand sourcing and to find good sources, but we saw some improvement through our slow, so we're happy. And we've been using this class as kind of like the helpful, like Carrie was saying, it's a good way of looking at it with a different lens, like you're really chunking it all out. So it's helped us.
Oh, good. All right, that's that. I always like to hear that when things are helpful, and
Yeah.
even more so when they actually get some practical application. I obviously that's not possible for everybody's projects, and I know everybody's in different situations. But as I said from the beginning, I'm always a big fan of if you can make this class and what we do in this class practical and actually apply it with your actual students, then all the better, because then you're getting to actually put all that work into practice and hopefully get some results out of it. So
Yeah,
that
absolutely. It was awesome.
that's great to hear. All right,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Rachel. All right, we've got the ball rolling now here. Who wants to jump in here next? Yeah, Eric, why don't you go ahead?
Um, so I've in social studies as well, and one of the things that I've noticed and is just basic geography skills are lacking. And I teach at high school in East Hartford, and the kids are coming in, they just don't know where any basic geographical features are, or political boundaries. And this year it's been really tough because we're starting our world history course for the first time at our school, and we thought it was a good idea to start off the school year with kind of just a basic assessment to see where the kids were. And you can't really teach world history if they don't know where any of the places are. So we've been struggling with that. Um, what has helped with my classes so far and with this has been just trying to make it more relevant, um, tying different tasks or activities into um, like where the kids are from, whether either from Puerto Rico or we have a lot of students that are from various countries in Africa as well, and just kind of like being able to tie it into that um, for and it made me think of it when Professor Miller was talking about like assessment too. I'm currently working on an assessment with this with um, just trying to do not only bring in the basic geographical skills, but bring in some very basic writing skills as well. So trying to mix up the assessment with it so that I'm not just doing like a multiple choice exam or a short answer. So right now the kids are creating and bringing in some technology with it and creating virtual postcards that they seem to be enjoying once they grasp the concept of a postcard, and then we're tying the geographical information in with that, and then bringing in some of the world history content as well. Um, so far, so good. There's definitely improvement from day one to where we are today. Um, so it looks like everything going in the direction it is. We'll probably continue with this again the next time we run up the course. Um, it's been interesting.
All right. Yeah, I mean that whole, I mean, what you touched on there is the whole concept of, authentic assessment, authentic um, activities. The more that you can make anything that you're doing in a classroom relevant to the students' actual experiences, personal experiences, it's going to grab them in a different way than if it's just kind of random facts that
Mhm.
they're being feeling like they just have to learn. So I love that idea of the postcard. Although again, like, what is a postcard these days? When was the last time anybody actually sent a postcard to anyone? So,
Yeah.
sounds good. All right, thanks, Eric. Steve, I think your hand went up there, so I'm assuming that means you would like to jump in next. So why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I figured that I'm social studies too, so why not just
Oh,
go three in a row?
hey, yeah, get
Um,
all the social studies out of the way.
so it's actually funny because I struggled with the original, the very first thing of making the smart plan because it wasn't I forget the word, but measurable. That's the one. So my original plan, which I forgot now what it was because it was so long ago, wasn't measurable. Then I looked at what we're doing in our school in Windsor's. I don't know if anyone else has the misfortune, but the Windsor is making a huge push for SAT scores. I guess that the neighboring city had better SAT scores last year, and it really got under the gills of our uh, director.
Hmm.
So he's making a giant push for SAT scores. Everyone, even the art teachers and music teachers, is like, how can you help SAT scores? So as a social studies teacher, we're tasked with helping with the reading SAT score. So that's what my design was about, was designing a lesson that can help SAT scores throughout the class, which every bone in my teacher body knows is a bad idea, but given that it's something I can measure easily and it's something that we needed to do for um, the the city and to keep our job. That's what I chose to do. So the pre-test is essentially we have their PSAT scores, but also giving an SAT style test. But the lessons are both about how to take the test. So to take like a meta view of the test, like what is the SAT test? What kind of questions can there be? What do the right answers normally look like? So it's not just teaching content, but it's teaching test taking, which I'm sure they probably do if you go to one of the highfalutin SAT test factories. But as a public school, it's something we don't shouldn't normally do. But given it's what they want, then that's what they got. So how to take the test, where you would find the correct answer. So reading comprehension is another part of the lesson. And then just, taking the test, getting used to the habit of this is a time constraint. You have to read in this time, even with students that have extra time, right? There's a certain uh, test taking ability that you need to work on. So part of the lesson too is like taking the test, and that's the ultimate assessment, of course. And while I know that it's not the best way to grow students' minds, unfortunately, it's something that we had to do. So I thought the process worked well to, here's the thing I don't want to do. How can I do it as effectively as humanly possible? So that's why I liked the design plan for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a struggle. The fight against standardized instruction, and letting things like the SAT drive. I know the PSAT scores just came out, which we got presented at our faculty meeting. Fortunately, our school district, while it does pay attention to those scores, generally speaking, is not quite so driven by them. But there still was some of that. Like, I'm a music teacher, but they're just saying like all the teachers can be helping with some of these core skills. So not quite as bad as what it sounds like you're going through, but definitely feel your pain there. So
They've stressed SMART goals, and one of their goals is for the 2025 semester year for every 100% of students to be above the state average. And I just said they don't understand what SMART goals mean because that's like 100% to be above average is just mathematically improbable. But
yeah, I think that's taking the R of the SMART goal and sort of
yes,
kicking it out the window.
but that's what I'm dealing with. So that's
Yeah.
our reality for right now. So
Yep. All right. Well, thank you. Let's see, Teddy. I saw your hand go up there. So if you want to jump in next, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so my project was on I'm a PE teacher, so sorry to change up all the social
Oh,
studies and whatnot.
that's all good.
Um, but I teach PE. I'm a first year teacher, and you feel like you're ready for everything, and then you have to go into the weight room with high school students, especially freshmen. And I struggled with that, so I wrote my entire project on weight room safety and kind of teaching more in the weight room. And next week, actually, I'm back in the weight room because it's a new quarter and my high school goes off of quarters. So I'm going to be using a lot of what I talked about in this project, and I'm going to tie it into my actual teaching. So I'm excited to see how it's going to go now that I've kind of prepared myself a little bit more with that.
Cool. Yeah. Again, awesome that you have an opportunity to actually put some of this into the field, as it were, and kind of see how it works out. And I mean, we talked a lot about assessment of the students and assessment pre, post, and so on. There's of course also that other layer of assessment of assessing the instructional program. And of course, one of the best ways to do that is to get it in an actual classroom and have results that you can observe and kind of get that feedback about whether it's doing what it needs to do or if there's adjustments you need to make. I mean, I this is my 24th year teaching, and there's some classes that I've taught almost all 24 of those years, and I still don't think that I've taught the class the same way 2 years in a row. Like, you are always making adjustments and sort of evaluating what needs to happen from year to year to year. So, all
Absolutely.
right. Thank you, Teddy. Who's next? Let's see. We still have a few more out there, I know. Anybody want to jump in next?
I'll go next.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Carly.
I did my project for a second grade class about opinion writing. For me, the biggest challenge was not being a full-time teacher right now and just being a substitute teacher. My experience level is not totally there yet. So a lot of it, I don't want to say like I was guessing on, but I was trying to revert back to my different student teaching experiences to try to use that experience to build on my knowledge. But that was definitely the challenging part for me. But I think I would definitely be more prepared now when I actually become a full time teacher and can use this project to help with lesson plans in the future. So I guess it was good in that sense that future me is more prepared now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that is, again, kind of challenging when you don't necessarily have a specific group of students or a classroom that you can kind of use in your head as your target. But yeah, definitely. I mean, having the framework going forward, every tool that a teacher can add to their toolbox is just going to help you be a better and more prepared teacher. When I think back to, first and second year me, it's pretty cringy when I think about some of the things that I did back in the beginning. But everything is learning and growing and getting new approaches and new tools in that teaching toolbox. So, all right, let's see. I think we've got a couple more here. Um, who wants to jump in next?
I can dive in if you want.
All right, Michael, why
Um,
don't you go ahead?
my background is in video production, but I'm currently a special education paraeducator in a high school, actually the high school I graduated from. And so I have an opportunity to work with teens. And one of the things I've noticed with teens is that they don't have the best skills and interpersonal skills in terms of listening to people, maintaining eye contact with people, and being active listeners. And I have the opportunity to work in some of the video courses. So I chose to sort of do a, a course idea that on the surface is simply just a course to help people improve their interviewing skills as part of creating video content. And um, one of the challenges in that is being able to just be quiet, ask questions that are open ended, aren't going to end in yes or no answers. But more importantly, you really have to do your research. You have to really know who you're talking to, um, be prepared for what they might say, already know what they're going to say. So you can really develop a conversation with them. And they're really the similar skills that a student in high school might use to get onto a certain team or get accepted at a college or get a job in the future. And so it's kind of a three-pronged approach. And again, initially it's just improving interview skills, but it's also teaching them to really become know how to do research on a company or a school, be an active listener, and also be able to pre-visualize an end product. So on its outset, it's kind of an exercise in what's called narrative form, where they have to really be able to pre-visualize the video piece they're going to do in the future, so they know what questions, what visual lumber to cut while they have the opportunity to be interviewing somebody. So that's all it really is. But
Yeah.
I really got some great ideas from this course in particular. I wasn't really sure what to do for a pen and paper exercise, and I decided to do something where the students are going to pair off and have to interview. They can pick any role they want to be, celebrity, whatever, the business owner, but they won't know anything about their business, and the other person won't know anything about who they are or their background either. And they're going to have to struggle with that, interviewing each other with no information. And then finally, the last thing I'm trying to teach them to do is be able to actually take control of the situation. I know professionally, when I do interviews with people or have done interviews with people, you can have a great conversation going in. As soon as you turn around and say to the camera operator, okay, let's go ahead and record, everybody just freezes up. So as a director, you have to have those little things worked out where you say to the camera operator, I'm never going to say to you, record, just start recording before we ever even come in. And you start a conversation, and before you know it, it's over and you're done. So I want them to be able to understand how to take control of a situation, including a job interview or an interview for college, rather than have it take control of them. Sorry that went on
Yeah.
a little bit long.
No, that's okay. No, that's, yeah, awesome set of skills that obviously, like you said, has way more implications beyond just creating, doing video interviews. But having a daughter who is currently 16 and is currently interviewing for jobs and starting to look at colleges and all that kind of stuff, like all of those interview skills. She's got an acting background to fall back on, which has definitely helped her. But yeah, that's a great thing. I mean, that should be the kind of thing that every student should get some kind of a background in as they prepare to head out into the world. So, all right, let's see. I think we've got two more to go here.
I could go next.
Okay, go ahead.
So mine was looking at multiplication, or for fourth graders, looking at multiplication with factors less than 12. I'm a fourth grade teacher, so this was something that I've seen a lot of my students recently, especially struggling with. So I wanted to try to pick something that I could use in my class. I plan to use it at the beginning of the school year, so I wasn't able to actually try it out this year, but I hope to next year, which will be nice to see how it goes. One of the biggest challenges that I had, however, was trying to pick assignments or create different assignments that would benefit everyone in my class. I've noticed that there's a wide range of abilities from the lowest possible to students who are already fluent in multiplication. So it's kind of difficult to pick out different ways that I could easily differentiate work where it could really benefit everyone and not just a certain group of students within the class. But it was nice to kind of be able to figure that out and use it in other ways in my class now, even though I plan to with that multiplication next year. Some other challenges were just kind of looking at different ways, since at least in our district, our math is very planned out and we don't really have much wiggle room to do what we want to do or what our students need. So it was a little difficult to try to work within those boundaries as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that whole differentiation issue. I mean, that kind of gets into, do you want to take the approach of kind of creating a middle of the road and then have accommodations that you make to handle students who don't fall in that zone? Or are you going to try to do the universal design approach where you try to come up with something where it can apply to all students and still support them equally, which is its own particular kind of challenge? But yeah, I would imagine. I mean, it's been a long time since I've worked in the elementary level, but that working in an elementary classroom, general classroom like that, you probably are dealing with those kinds of ranges of abilities in students much more than you would, say, in a high school class, where by high school the students have sort of differentiated themselves in some way based on what classes they're taking and levels and so on. So I can see that that would be definitely a particular challenge. So um, all right, well, thank you, Tate. And Jesse, I think that brings us to you.
Yes, that's me. Okay. Well, I work for a nonprofit organization that tries to help young adults get back into society. These young men really don't have too much skills. Um, so trying to teach them something is not easy. But first of all, they don't want to listen, and they always have the. I mean, they always think they know it all. Okay, and when they do listen. So, with that in mind, I said, well, let me see if I can find something basic to hold a group with them, so they can learn how to think critically, organizing, also putting one, two, three together. So the first idea I had was um, writing a message, which I noticed a lot of people here do not know how to write a message. Okay, it's really it's not difficult, but you have to write a message where you know who it's going to, what is the message, and who sent the message with a contact number. Okay, and that sometimes does not happen. So I wound up uh, trying to find out uh, where is this message coming from. Okay, so I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But I decided to write do a instruction course and how to write a professional email. A lot of these clients right now are looking for jobs, sending emails, and interviewing. So this right here will help them understand how to write an email, and when they get an email, what are the parts, where to look for the the the, the bulk or the most important part of the email, which is the body, and of course, who is writing the email. So I had to go through the mental preparation. I had to make sure that they prepare themselves, focus on what they have to do. Okay. Which means, okay, I'm going to write a message. I'm going to write a note. I'm going to write a email. So I had to know certain facts here. Who's it going to? Um, what is their position? What is the message? The body. And then what is the tone of the email? I mean, is it a friend? Is it somebody I know? Is it somebody I don't know? That all depends. And then, of course, closing and signing off on the email. That's not difficult. Okay. What I am beginning to see is the parts of the final, okay, which has let's see, okay, which has okay, this is the final needs analysis, instructional goals, audience analysis, sequence and segmentation, instructional material, assessment for student learning, and technology implementation. We don't have any technology because it's not that kind of place. We're working on it. We're working on it. But when I did the individual assignments, it was not that difficult. It wasn't easy. But now I find trying to put it all together so it makes sense, so it'll flow. I have to make a larger effort to do so. Um, because I get lost in my goal, in my flow. What is it, how I want to say this? Okay. And sometimes when I send you assignments in PDF, the video does not show in PDF, so I have to send it in Word where it shows the video or the audio or whatever um, it is that I'm sending to you. So those are things those are obstacles that I have to deal with. Um, but I think I will get through this. It's been very learning for me. I've learned how to organize, and I have learned to, when I'm holding a group, how to go about presenting my material to the group, to the guys, so they can understand and walk away with something from the group. So I'm learning how to do that a little better because of this class. The materials, they, I'm doing better with the materials, and also I'm doing better with um, the group understanding sheet where they feed back on the topic and they feed back what is it that they learn and how they're going to apply it. And that is very helpful for me because then I can see where they missed the points. And then the next group, I can adjust my presentation.
Yeah.
So basically, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that again, you're touching on what came up earlier of sort of that assessment of the program. Whenever you get that data back from the students, that's always a great way to kind of evaluate whether the program is doing what you want it to do, if you need to make adjustments, make changes, and so on. So, yeah. All right. Well, it's part of why I like doing this is just to kind of get a sense of the range, even though we did have 3 social studies teachers, but that's okay. Nothing against social studies. But just to kind of see, this is not just a process that is about a particular set of core areas. This is something that we do from elementary through college level planning, any subject area, any topic, any application in a school, out of a school, anywhere that instruction needs to happen. This instructional design process really is there to help pull all the pieces together and just make sure we haven't missed anything along the way. So, really just to kind of put a button on all of this, in terms of what happens after tonight, really, obviously at this point, all coursework has been assigned. That was true as of last week. So there's nothing that you have to complete that you don't have information on already. I did put in that coursework summary page last week, just as a way for you to kind of have a one-stop shop to look back and check in to make sure you know where you are with everything. Um, so that's a good place to kind of check as well. In terms of the final project itself, we have a little bit of advantage. The way the calendar worked out this year is, normally next week would kind of be the week by the end of which all work would have to be into me, but somehow with the way that the university calendar worked this year, we kind of picked up an extra half a week or so. So my final deadline for all of you in terms of you getting any work to me will be Tuesday, December 20th. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. So you still have half a month to go to get anything finished that needs to be finished. And that's just because I have to have my grades turned in by 2 days later. So I just want to give myself a little buffer in case things are coming in on the 20th to be able to turn them around and look at them, and get meaningful grading done on them. So that's kind of basically the timeline from here on out. Is you've got 2 more weeks to wrap all the work up, get it to me. At this point, from here on out, I'm just going to be kind of checking in on a daily basis. And as things come in, I'm going to be trying to, get things graded early so I'm not left at the end doing everything. At this point, I think pretty much all of the phase assignments that have been turned in, I have been able to return feedback on. I kind of focused on those. I know I still have some of the production mini projects to look through. So I'm going to be kind of getting those out of the way. And then for anything that was work that hadn't been turned in yet, I just check in. And when I see the indications in the Blackboard grade book, I'll be going back and kind of filling in those gaps as well. So, if you need additional time beyond the end of the course, there is always an option for an incomplete, which gives you a window of another, I think it's like 5 or 6 weeks or something like that, which we could use if needed. Just get in touch with me individually if you think that's something you're going to need to use. But I think for the most part, it looks like most of you are in good shape to get all this wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. So there's no class next week. If you do want to meet with me, just reach out to me individually, and we can just set up a time to either conference here through WebEx or through email or whatever. But basically, that's the final steps, is just to get any remaining work completed over the course of the next couple weeks. And I will probably be seeing a number of you in the spring. I teach both the 520 and the 530 class, and I know a lot of people, that's their next step in the program. So I will probably see many of you, if not this coming spring, maybe a year from this spring as you get further into the program. But if not, it's been a pleasure to have all of you and to see all of your hard work in the course. And I'm here as a resource. So if you ever need to reach out to me about anything related to educational technology or instructional design or anything along those lines, don't hesitate to reach out and use me as a resource down the road as well. So, anything else that anybody wants to throw out for the good of the order before we bid adieu? All right. Well, again, thank you all. Thank you for a great 15 weeks. And let me know if you need any final assistance to get any of the work in. But again, you've got 2 more weeks to go still before that final deadline. So hopefully that will allow all of you to get a chance to wrap things up in a way that feels comfortable and get all of that turned in. So I won't keep you any longer. Have a great evening and have a great holiday season as we head into the new year. And like I said, I will probably see many of you in January. If not, enjoy the rest of your school year. So
Thank you.
have a great night.